Hey guys, this is Matthew. Just kind of wanted to do a video of basically doing some photo retouching, and this is not necessarily project related, but it's I think it can be handy for folks who are taking photographs of your work and trying to get some general guidelines for how to use Photoshop to touch some things up. And so I recently was asked and hired to just take a few photographs of some Navajo silversmithing objects. Um, and I've done this before multiple times, so I have a little bit of experience photographing these types of objects. And over the years, I've kind of developed a system for doing this. So, of course, I'm sharing my screen. I kind of wanted to start by just taking a. I like using Bridge to kind of navigate. If I do a photo project, I can use Bridge to kind of navigate the negatives essentially, so I can make some decisions. So let's see. I'm trying to get there right now, but Bridge can be a handy thing just to kind of review the images or negatives that you have after a session of photography. So here we go. Like here are the previous images that I've taken for NCAP. And here are the images that I grabbed that evening, which was, I hate to say it, but it was about a week ago on the 2nd. So anyway, I mean, this is kind of cool. These are Nikon raw images, and of course it's giving you all the information as far as the quality. So you can see, like, even I'm using a tripod to capture all these images, and these are negatives, by the way. And I am using a tripod. I would highly suggest that you try to use a tripod when you're doing documentation photography, because the goal, there's nothing worse than not taking enough images during a photography session and not having an image in focus. And you can even see, like, I'm using the tripod in these two different circumstances, and using the nice thing about Bridge is you can sort of just kind of detail images before you open them up, and you can see, look at the difference. Like, and this is the same exact circumstance, the tripod, everything, and for some reason the image captured a more sharp focus in this circumstance. But in this circumstance, I mean, that's basically an image that I can't work with. And so you can't really depend on the camera to always do what it needs to do every single shot that you're getting. Okay. I mean, I know cameras are good these days, and but just be on the safe side, because you spend a lot of time setting up that light kit and getting the objects from folks, and I don't know, like arranging them. I mean, it takes a lot of time. And so if you can get a real nice kind of snug, clear image, like look at that. That looks really nice and crisp. I think that's beautiful. So that's another one that I just can't use. So honestly, I'm just going to delete this because it's not even worth having or saving on my hard drive. That's another one that's pretty much just worthless. So I'm just going to delete it. So I've got two relatively sharp images there. One's a little bit closer in. This, let's see, that's out of focus. I'm going to get rid of this one too. Yeah, I don't know. Like, seems like these first two are the best. Those are real nice and clear. And I'm basically evaluating the negatives right now, folks. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that was one of the objects that I was asked to document, and then I looked at some other things too, and yeah, and they are a little, they're not very bright right now, folks. I mean, that's going to change here in a little bit. But the real important thing, I mean, I can deal with this. I can up the exposure. I can deal with that. But if you have an image that is out of focus and not sharp, that's just a nightmare. Okay. And so it's kind of fun just to kind of take a look. This looks pretty good, but I also took a lot of different images, I think, of these, just to kind of decide which one is best. And I don't want to, this is a really important step in the project too, because I have taken a lot of different images here, and I've got to make a decision about which one is best, which one captures. It's got to be in focus, first of all, but you can see these are the same objects, but I'm rotating them in different positions just to kind of get a sense of how they feel. And so at some point, I am going to make a decision and stick with it. So anyway, all of these look like they're really nicely in focus. I don't see any that are too bad. Like some of those other ones, I just just throw it in the trash. I can't use it at all. There's no way I can sharpen it up. But these are all pretty good. Yeah. And with Bridge, you can kind of zoom in and out, just to get a sense of things. I think Bridge is a pretty underrated Adobe application, in my opinion. Okay, so I've got to make some decisions here. In fact, the other thing I want to do is, I only want to edit one of these. Because the client is paying me to do X, and so I don't see any reason why to do more work than I have to do. And so again, this is a really crucial part in the process. So I'm going to come over here to photography, open up this file folder, and then I'm going to create a new folder. I'll edit. Okay. And let's start with these guys. Okay. So I think I'm better off with an image that's more in focus, or that's zoomed in a little bit more. Let's go back and check that things are really. I don't know. My intuition is telling me that this is a good bet. So I'm going to go with DSC 003. Nice. I'm just going to put that over there, and I can grab this and then kind of move it. I think that'll work. Of course, that did not work. Hold on one second. Just, some file logistics here. All right. So this guy's gone here. All right, let's just continue looking at these and move on to the next one. And by the way, at the end, I was shooting the textiles, but I did shoot these from above at some point. I just kind of realized that those were nice views. I think I'm a little biased on that view, especially like this one right here. That has some red in it, so that could be distracting. So I'm not going to choose that one. I think my best bet, I like that view, but that red is just not working. Oh, let's make sure that things are in focus. That's pretty good. Both of those are real nice. Hmm. I'm going to go with 42. So I'm making a decision to edit that one and not the others. So I'm not wasting time. If someone's hiring you to do work, you want to do your homework and make sure that you're not spending more time than you're being paid for on a project, essentially. I don't know how else to say that, but you're not doing this for your health. In fact, editing photos isn't my favorite thing to do. Um, but but it's kind of funny, I was thinking about this the other day. Over the years, I've learned to use a camera pretty successfully. Um, whether it was wedding photography back in the day but I've always managed to make money actually doing photography. So this sort of thing is a great skill to have, and people will, once they see your work and you've done good work for them before, they'll hire you back. And so it just kind of happens. Um, so I think I'm going to go with this one right here. I don't know. I think it feels a little funny with that pointing that way. It feels more right with this pointing down. That one's not bad either, but this has that little mark right there. Do you see it? That little, like, yeah. I'd rather that was obscured. Let's make sure that this is in real good focus. Okay, so I'm gonna go with 48 on that one. Got that one. Okay, here's another. I think I like this view. I don't know what it is, but it's not bad either. These are a little bit more, just a little closer, baby, basically, so that you can see the details really nicely. Look at that. It's nice detail there. It's not bad. That's 34. Coming back to 34, I think that's the money right there. So grab that, move it on up. Okay, so I just want to make sure I've got everything covered. I grabbed one of those guys. I grabbed one of those guys. Those are 3 objects. So 3 bracelets and a necklace. And then, you guys, I'm just going to speak very candidly about this, but I'm not crazy about photographing textiles. It's not, I don't feel like it's my strength, and I'm always a little self-conscious about it. Um, so I have photographed these before, and that's where I really ran into a lot of issues with things not being in focus, or things needing to be in better focus. They're not, again, it's not, oh man, it's always a challenge, I'll tell you. I, uh, Now you can kind of see the context of what I'm doing too. It's really simple. This is just, my living area, and I have a light on the left and right hand side, and that light kit, it's tungsten. And now you have to replace those bulbs because they get really hot and then they start to sort of dim a little bit. In fact, I think, with this particular project, I did use some older bulbs, and so they could have been brighter, but they're still providing nice even light. So they're still doing the job. Okay, but looks like 59 is 56, 59. Okay, let's grab 56 and 59, and we might have to make some decisions between those two. Now let's actually down here. Look at these. I want to toggle back and forth comparatively. Yeah, these textiles are really tricky, in my opinion. I feel like 56 is better. So 59 is going to go back. All right. Okay. And there's another. Now I need to crawl out of that folder. Let me come back here. So you can kind of see, I mean, yeah, you guys, I'm really just being honest. I'm kind of self-conscious about photographing these textiles. I don't ever feel like it's good enough because these things are really beautiful. Okay, that's not bad. 53. 53 is the best so far. 55 isn't bad. Let's comparatively look at 53 and 55. Then we'll make a decision. About the same, actually. But this one might give me some more flexibility. Okay, I've got to make a decision here. Plenty of room there. I'm tempted to use this one. So 55 is going to go back. Sometimes it's just intuition, guys. All right, so I need to edit these images. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I usually have a rate associated. I mean, a lot of folks and students actually ask me, how do you charge, Professor Bollinger? How do you decide how much to charge? And the big question is, how much is your time worth? And then you gotta discuss or think about your expertise too, because the time that it takes for me to do this work is a lot faster compared to, like, I don't know, 5, 10, 15 years ago, because I'm just more comfortable doing it. So yeah, A, what is your time worth? And then B, I mean, maybe it's just a project, passion project that you think would be good for your portfolio. This is the kind of work that doesn't go into my personal portfolio. It's more like just additional income from my perspective. So I'm not really personally attached to doing this kind of work, but I am personally attached to doing favors for folks and for friends. And so actually this particular project is kind of a favor for a friend as well. And so I'm not giving them the institutional corporate rate, I'm giving them the friend rate. And I think that's really important, when you're charging as well. If you're charging a friend who is, getting paid every 2 weeks, and they're paying rent and they're raising kids and they're doing these things, I think it's just really important to keep that in mind from my personal perspective. Now, if I'm doing work for a corporation or an institution, they've got they've got money available to them to make these things happen. And so you should keep that in mind. And that's why you always ask that sort of organization or institution, what is your budget to get this completed? Um, I mean, that's my best answer for that question, but I'm not going to give you particular numbers. So let's go back down. Well, we're already there. Now, the other thing that is nice about the way that I do this is that I have this white backdrop. You can kind of see it's basically just a big piece of museum board that I prop up, wherever I can. And, I do sort of ad hoc DIY makeshift these sort of circumstances because my space is limited. But all you need is a relatively nice clean sheet of white museum board. Uh, and that it's really important to have that background because essentially you can see that, this is underexposed a little bit. It's a well-balanced image and that can be corrected in Photoshop and it's in focus. We've chosen the ones that are in focus. But the real truth is you have to set your white balance against something. And so having a beautiful alpine white piece of museum board to reference for your point of reference for white balance, and it's consistent with all of the images that you've taken, that's really important. And going back to consistency, I mean, when I do a photo shoot, I set it up in one location. I also shoot at night because I don't want daylight changing my lighting circumstance. And so I want to control whatever's happening within my space. So I always shoot after the sun goes down. And that way the natural light is not interfering with the the lighting scenario I'm trying to set up in a consistent way within a space. So yeah, this background is really important. Consistent lighting is really important. I think it's also important to note that when my light kit is I don't change the height of my lights or bulbs during a photo shoot session. I try not to, but sometimes you have to because essentially you want the camera to be on center with the middle of the artwork. And additionally, you want the light on the left and the right-hand side to be on center with the artwork as well. And so the artwork, the camera lens, and the two lights should all be on center looking at this object. And so, for example, if I look in here, you can kind of see there are two shadows happening. This shadow is happening from the light on the left-hand side, and this shadow is happening from the light on the right-hand side. And so I think that's okay. I mean, my belief, I don't actually spend forever doing Photoshop edits. That's just not my way. I think having a clear image is really important and having a good exposure and a delivered good exposure for the client, I should say that, and having appropriate color because I want this red to read as the right kind of red for the client because this is their artwork. And a good way to kind of do that is again by having a point to set white balance to. And so that'll help make sure this red is the proper red that this particular textile is in this circumstance. So yeah, just a few logistics about kind of setting things up. I use tungsten bulbs right now, but I've heard that LED bulbs are really nice. You also have to set your white balance on your camera. That can be helpful. And so if you look on your bulb, you'll see a temperature reading. It'll say like 3200 Kelvin or whatever. And then you can set the white balance on your camera to mimic that or mirror that. But again, these bulbs actually I've used for some other photo sessions. So it's probably not quite accurate. So the best way to really be accurate with white balance is to have something to set it to. And that's why this whole entire background is really going to help my editing process. Okay. So let's just kind of try one of these. And before we get started, let me back up for a second. And I want to show you guys, some of the other, let's just kind of examine this folder. You can kind of see these are previous images of objects that I photographed in the past. And again, I'm taking multiple different I'm capturing multiple different negatives of the same object because I want to be sure I get one that is perfectly in focus. And you want to make sure you have plenty of options when you're editing as well. There's nothing worse than realizing, oh, I don't have a single negative of this object in focus. So I'm going to have to reset up everything. I mean, if it's a painting or a drawing also, I mean, it's a huge pain in the rear to have to reach into your portfolio if it's a large drawing, for example, and put it up on the wall safely. And I mean, handling artwork can be stressful. Handling other people's artwork can be even more stressful. In fact, when I photograph these things, I immediately, after I'm done with them, the following morning, because I photograph at night, I try to immediately get these back to the client because I don't want anything bad to happen because they're valuable both personally and financially. And so holding on to these things is just a bad idea too. And so you can kind of see, look at all these negatives that I'm getting. I mean, just straight on, oblique, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. It's all there. So I have some options. Okay. But at some point, boy, I photographed a lot of stuff that session. But you can kind of see, look at this. Edit. There's an edit folder. And I pulled them out, and then I have a final folder. And then I have a delivered folder, blah, blah, blah. But here are, and this is kind of where we're going, just to kind of give you an idea. Those look real nice. I don't know, I'm always proud to deliver these images to folks because I just think they're beautiful. It's kind of nice, folks are putting a lot of love and care into these things. And so I try to return that favor by putting enough love and care into documenting them. I do want to remind myself as far as the dimensions. So I just kind of want to open up Photoshop real fast and remind myself because I'm going to be delivering these new images at the same size, same ratio. So if I remember correctly, I thought it was 5:7. Let's see. No, but 8 by 10. Interesting. I am really struggling to remember. It can't be 6:4. Okay, well, this is a little bit of a pickle. Sorry, folks. Let's try this. 3796. Let's back up. And obviously it was consistent the way I was cropping these. Look. Okay, so I'm going to write down this pixelation, this pixel number. Something graphic designer do, just a little notepad near your desk area. So 3796 by 2848. I think that's the best way to have that consistency. I mean, it's almost kind of like in line with, having the right lighting. You want the right dimensions happening as well. So anyway, so I've got that. I've solved that riddle. Now I can go back, and you can kind of see, even in this circumstance, the negatives. This particular image was so big, I was having to stand on my counter, and I had to rearrange. I mean, that's on the floor. So because this object was so large, I really had to kind of think out of the box and rely. I wasn't even looking through the camera. I was just kind of holding it up above, desperately trying to get A, the object in the frame, and B, the object in perfect focus. So, I mean, those are just circumstances that you come across when you're photographing things that can be a little bit funny and tricky. Okay, coming back to here. Thank God I only have a few to edit today, which is nice. So I'm going to start with this one, see where that takes me. Okay, so these are Nikon RAW files, and you can kind of see that I'm not going to mess with playing with the, I don't change the temperature here, okay? I actually use the eyedropper tool to do that, but I do want to up the exposure. So look at that, you can kind of see, you see, this means that things are getting clipped right there. Okay, so you got to kind of back off a little bit. So I want to push it to the, I want to push it as far as I can without clipping. It's essentially what I want to do right now. And then I do want to select some white balance. Yeah, okay, I have to reassess exposure a little bit. It's going to work for me. So that's being converted into a negative. Not bad. Okay, so you can kind of see that the other thing to keep in mind is that it's really important to get good images at the get-go, like an image in focus, for example. I mean, if you don't have an image in focus, you need to start over because that is so important. But even if an image is underexposed and in focus, that's something you can work with, okay? So just kind of keep that in mind. So I'm going to unlock this because I want to save this as a PSD. All right. And then I'm going to create another folder called Final. And those are my PSD files. I'll leave that there for now. I'm going to go through and open all of these up because I do like to sort of do that in a batch kind of manner. Okay. So let's do the same thing, something kind of similar. And you can kind of see there are these shadows in different kind of ways that I mean, you want to find the most intense area on this white alpine sheet. And that, to me, that is like right here. So that's, yeah, that's real nice. And you can look how, I mean, this is how the object really looked when I was photographing it. It didn't have all that yellow, you know, because the tungsten light adds a lot of quote unquote, I guess, yellow, just yellow tones. And we don't want that. Now look up here. This is your bread and butter right here. You want to push that until things are not clipping. That's pretty good. I'm going to go with that one. Boom. Ooh. I mean, look at that. I mean, very simple things that you can do. And an image immediately just brightens up and it's real clear and looks clean. And look at that gorgeous, very subtle shadow right there. I mean, that, I love that stuff. I like a little grounding. Okay. Let's try again. Remember, white balance. That's really nice too. Look at these peaks. I like that. That's balance. Okay, let's find a real nice area to get to grab some, I think right there. Boom. That'll do it. See how these guys all came into in the sync up here? Now we're going to push that exposure to the point where we're not going to be clipping things. Might have to make some adjustments after we open it up. Use your intuition. That can be changed after the fact, after we open it up, okay? Looks pretty good to me. I like that. And it's also important, if you're photographing silversmithing jewelry, especially, I was depending on the artist to kind of buff these, and I think that he was doing that. But sometimes you got to be careful about fingerprints, and so you got to pick things up actually with a polished cloth and place them carefully. Okay, start with the white balance. These highlights kind of like right here that consistently happen. And so that's another consistent action that I'm taking, right? Boost the exposure. You just got to use your intuition. Because you don't want to burn information out, but you want it to be bright. All right. Works for me. It's a good place to start. That's a nice image. I like that. Okay, and the textiles, which I'm a little self-conscious about, so bear with me. This always makes me a little nervous. Okay, that's not bad. And let's boost this exposure a little bit. Feel comfortable with that. Last one. We're just bringing them into Photoshop because we're going to do some cropping, right? White balance. That graph up there is really your friend when you're doing this. Okay, now don't mind all the stuff in the background, my storage, my clever storage system. Okay, so we've got all these open. Save this as a Photoshop file. And I'm unlocking the layer in order to do that, by the way, folks. When seeing this in person, all these details was amazing. Now, keep in mind that, in all honesty, if the client had asked me to do so, they didn't. If the client had asked me to go in and get details of things like this, like I could have zoomed in and gotten some details of this wing, for example, which was really amazing to see up close and in person. They didn't ask me to do that. So again, this is a job that I'm being paid for. But in my work, what I'll do is if I'm photographing a drawing or a painting, I'll photograph the image all at once or a full image, and then I'll run around and get detail shots. That could be a little bit complicated though, actually, because you're trying to match the exposure and the white balance. And so if I zoom in and on the rug too much or the textile too much, that means that I can't use this backdrop as a tool for white balance. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll just use a sheet of an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and some tape. And so sometimes if I'm going in close to a drawing or a painting, I put that 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper on the painting just for a moment, so I can use that as a reference point again, because consistency is so important. So I hope that comment makes sense to everyone. So these are just tricks of the trade that I've been learning over the years that, I think it's valuable to pass on. All right. So now remember, we had already decided how we were going to crop things. So I just hit C on my computer, and then I just kind of changed things a little bit. Apparently we need to plug in these different numbers. And it was what, 3796 by 2848. Oops. So that's going to be in there for the duration that I'm doing this. And the first thing, I mean, so I've got that. Oops. Damn, darn it. I don't know why I did that. 3796 by 2848. Okay. My bad, folks. We have to straighten this image, and let's see. Usually I kind of do it. There's this bust area, and these two shoulders, for example. If I'm clever enough, I can hit C for crop. Then there's this option to straighten. But the other thing is that, by the way, I want to change the orientation. And yeah, I think I am going to crop according to the shoulders. And in all honesty, I did kind of make a slight mistake, because look at, this is a little bit askew. Somehow this ended up being not quite straight on. And so I am going to crop this area down here and focus more on up here, okay, for this image. So, but I'll get to that. But I mean, those are just things that I can't rephotograph any of this stuff. By the way, here's another thing. If I zoom in, you can see a little bit of reflection of my light kit, but I mean, that's almost impossible to avoid. Now, you don't want to be wearing a bright red shirt while you're doing this kind of work, because that might, just consider, the reflection of whatever you're photographing, and you don't want to have a lot of contrast there. Okay, here we go. I'm going to eyeball this, guys. That's all. Just eyeballing. It's a little tough, but yeah. See how that looks. It's pretty good. I like it. And yeah, and I kind of wanted to get rid of that foot. And I do need to kind of go back and forth a little bit. Some folks really get methodical with measurements. Usually, in all honesty, I might do that, but in this circumstance, I don't know why, but today I'm just kind of thinking. I think you should trust your eye quite a bit when you're doing this sort of thing. And what I'm doing is I'm looking at the left and the right hand side margin and just kind of toggling back and forth a little bit. You can see that because I didn't photograph it perfectly straight on, this is a little bit off. So I'm having to make a tough decision here. But I think it's more important for these margins to be even, okay? Because that's much more noticeable to the eye. That's just my experience kind of talking to me, okay? So, but that's pretty good. Not bad, huh? Okay. Let's go to this one. Change the aspect ratio a little bit. And, I always do kind of want things in the center. And so if you kind of adjust your crop a little bit for the aspect ratio. You just want things in the center, especially that beautiful jewel. I mean, that to me looks pretty good right there. And it's not perfect, this is kind of hanging down a little bit and this is out, but just again, you got to use your intuition. Okay. Right. This one's a little lighter compared to that one, so I'm gonna have to go back and make some exposure adjustments. And that's one of the nice things about just kind of being able to do this, because you can make those adjustments. Okay, so we'll do that last. And also the other nice thing is that this background is pretty clean. I don't see a lot of major issues. Sometimes you have to be careful about creating the scuffs that exist on these boards. They have to be dealt with later, and I know that there were some things happening on this board because I've used it many times before, but it didn't photograph, thankfully, and I think that has to do with the depth of field of the camera. Look at the way this is beautifully in focus and this kind of fades away here. And so, to me, that's nice. Okay. I don't want everything perfectly in focus. I'm trying to create an experience for the viewer. So it's good. Again, it's handy to have those. Just kind of squinching this down a hair can be helpful just for the balance. And I can kind of go side to side a little bit. That's good. That exposure needs to be bumped to hair because I want all of these to be similar. In fact, I might even bring in one of my exposures from the previous project because I'm interested in that consistency as well. I need a benchmark. That's the way I operate as an artist and designer. I think just doing things willy-nilly is valuable sometimes, but yeah, it's good to have constraints and rules. Yeah, that's really beautiful. I could have photographed this one a little bit more closely, but look at this beautiful negative space. And then, if Carlin wants to, he can zoom in. I just mistakenly used the name of the client. Didn't mean to do that. It's okay. Let's zoom in a hair. Just a hair. I think that's a good idea. Ooh, that's nice. That's a real nice one. I love this beautiful moonstone, I think. Save. Okay, guys, these are the ones that make me nervous. And okay. Yeah, the other thing is that textiles are not perfectly rectangle or square, and so that can be a little problematic for me because I get a little bit too focused on things needing to be perfect sometimes. And it's just guys, it's an imperfect world. Or here's another thing we could do. We could zoom in and straighten from these points. That might work too. I think I like that the best. That's the best route to take. Okay. I gotta crop out this table a little bit. It's actually not too bad. I mean, this stuff kind of surprises me sometimes that it works out better than I usually expect. And that's just, I think artists and designers do that constantly. They kind of, they're hard on themselves. Maybe they're right. But I do want this centered, so I'm kind of working to kind of zoom out. Be really deceptive, looking at all these different variables like this, you can see that this is not straight at the top. But I don't know, maybe it works better if it's not perfectly straight. So I don't know. I'm doing the best I can with what I got. And like I said, these textiles are frustrating for me. I think that's about as I like that. So I'm gonna hit enter. Oh, okay. That doesn't feel bad. Save. All right, here's another. Let's do this. Hmm. What we could do, here's a clever move. We could straighten it in this manner. You say, yeah, I like that. Now, this is a circumstance. Hmm. I'm gonna have to do some work down here, guys. All right. Clean things up with Photoshop. Yeah. I mean, see the curve. These textiles are funny because I have to put tape on the back of them, and you can see, this wall kind of curls up, right? And then this is obviously curling forward. So it's just really hard to get these things as perfect as I'd like for them to be. I think that's why they drive me nuts. Okay. Let's bring in an example now from the previous project. And so that's one that I completed. You can see that one's real nice on the right. And I think, oops, move that to the far end. So all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to sort of compare the exposures. I think that this one exposure can be raised. Hmm. I'm just kind of looking and comparing right now, folks. Bump in that exposure here. A little more. Brighten it up just a little more. So that's my benchmark. This is my rule that I'm kind of, I mean, otherwise going willy-nilly with this sort of thing can be dangerous in my opinion, because you need something to hold on to and reference. Otherwise, you'd do this all day. And again, I mean, time is money. You're being paid to do a job. Let's get it done quick, right? But I do like to just kind of use my eye. Feel a little brighter than some of the others, but imagining things. Do this one more pass. Actually, it might be a little too high. One, camera two. Wayne's World reference. It's a nice image. These are all good. Bumped a hair. Okay, the next step for me, guys, I mean, I think that's a pretty good, some good progress. The next step for me is to kind of zoom in and just kind of take a look at things. Because one of my favorite tools is this smudge tool. Obviously not at that scale. 10 pixels. Example, like this little guy right here. To make sure you have the right layer selected. But I can come in and I can just kind of smudge those out instead of using the clone tool, which is good. I've just found that this smudge tool is better for me. Yeah, just any little imperfections that you want to address. The smudge tool is handy for that. And it goes like in the black area, obviously there's a lot of contrast, but I think, I don't know how, like somehow with this set of photos, there were not as many imperfections on the white backdrop. that I have to deal with. I don't see anything that's really glaring at me or winking at me. So I'm just kind of moving around the image and being really certain that everything is in good order. But I think that I'm really pleased with that one. I'm going to save it, Command S. Now let's do the same thing here. Just make sure everything's looking good. I found, especially with the silversmithing work, that you have to be careful when you're laying it down, relatively gentle. See, that's a slight smudge there, but I don't think it's enough to warrant me to go in and modify things. I don't really see anything that's driving me crazy. This is a little weird right there. You kind of see, well, there's one right there too. Sometimes you can end up making these things worse too. So, sometimes let sleeping dogs lie. I'm pretty happy with that one. It's a real nice image right here. Look at that. This, I could have maybe polished this a little bit more, but maybe the camera is just really good at picking this stuff up, and I couldn't have made it any better because I got this stuff wrapped up in little pieces of shirt, indicating that the client had really spent some time kind of polishing. There's a defect right there. So I can hit Z for zoom. Look at that. I don't know, that one's a little bit more intense. Let's see if we can do anything. Oh, I got to select the right layer, of course. There we go. Simple as that. There are a lot of these things, but folks, it's an imperfect world. And sometimes you can make it worse by addressing it. These look really nice and clean to me. I accidentally closed that image. Now this one's really good. I don't think I really need to do much to this one. I think it could have been in slightly better focus, I'm going to be honest. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll put a little piece of tape, and then I'll ask the camera to focus on that area. But again, these textiles, they drive me crazy, folks. They just drive me crazy. The client wants what the client wants, right? Now, the one that's going to be a little bit more difficult is this one, because I have to fake what's going on up here down there. So I'm going to try something. Watch this. Bear with me for a second, please. You select. Oops. You see what I just did? A little work there. Could have grabbed a little more. Darn it. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to drag it. So I hit transform to just drag it down a little further. Yeah, not bad, huh? I mean, it's very hardly noticeable. Yeah. Then what the other thing I can do is select both layers and merge those layers. Although I lost the exposure work that I've done there. Let's see, let's try this. There we go. All right, guys. Let's double check what's going on here. That is seamless. I mean, guys, look at that. That is really nice. beauty. I mean, that's what Photoshop is good for. You know, it drives me crazy when I see folks trying to use Photoshop to uh, to do any kind of like design work. But you know, Photoshop is good for working on photos. There was a little piece of tape here, but I think when I upped the exposure, it got corrected. Now I want to do something else. Saving all of these. I don't know, but it might sound funny, but I just closed them. Now I'm going to open them up again because I want to do another round of just checking my own mental health. Nope, final. They are. With there's the original exposure. That looks pretty good. That looks pretty convincing too, about the same. That one just looks a little brighter, but I think the exposure is about the same. I just want the feel. See how I'm toggling back and forth? I want the feel to be consistent. And then I can even do this just to kind of look at the feel of these. I think that's pretty good. All right, well, now we need to export. Um, JPEG, installation, canvas size. Bump this up to all the way. Yeah, I'm just going to give them the full-fledged. I usually create another folder called deliver. And since I'm giving them the highest quality image, I don't need to do like low, medium, and high. I'm just going to give them the high image and then they can do what they need to do from there. JPEGs, high. Oh, nice. I like these. Wish I could afford one. Replicate file on that one. So yeah, I mean, when I first started this project, also I was looking at all the negatives that I had captured, and I think I ended up taking 60 or 65 images that evening. And you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So for every image, final image that I am delivering, I actually took 10 images with my camera. I want the best version. This, oh no, I don't want the back of this. Now, just for fun, let's go back to I mean, final and then deliver. They are a little discrepancy there. Like that one feels just slightly warmer, and that one feels a little cooler. You know, those are you guys. I'm just kind of at a point in my life where it's okay. I mean, these are really nice looking images. I think the client will be happy. I just want to remind you where we started. So the backup. And those needed to be cleaned up. They needed the exposures to be fixed up, and I had to choose which ones were best. And so I hope all this was very helpful. It's kind of, I just thought that, I don't know, I'm just realizing that when I do this sort of thing, I should be recording it for anyone that might want to be listening. So I hope you liked it. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.